And this brings us to the fourth pillar of army design. Welcome to the fourth pillar of army design, range. There are 3 effective ranges in Warhammer 40,000 9th edition that you need to be aware of. They are
long range,
medium range, and
short range,
or close combat range. These are the 3 ranges. Now, they each have a distance measurement on the board. Long range is anything over 24 inches. We specify what long range is based on the fact that most armies will set up 24 inches apart at the start of the game, and that is the range of a bolt gun, which is the basic gun in the game. Your las guns have a 24-inch range. Almost every basic rifle has a 24-inch game.
And chain cannons.
And chain cannons, yeah. Most guns have a 24-inch range, so we consider that medium range. So anything that's longer than 24 is going to be able to shoot into your opponent's deployment zone on the first turn of the game. You don't need to move, and you can shoot. So we're talking things like heavy bolters, missile launchers, anything that has that long range, las cannons. These are your long range weaponry. But long range isn't just the ability to shoot. It can also be the ability to charge. For example, White Scars have a 14-inch movement on their Outrider bikes and a guaranteed 6-inch advance. 14 plus 6 is 20, which puts them 4 inches away from the edge of long range or your opponent's deployment zone. And because you charge on 2d6s with the average number being 7, 20 plus 7 is 27, which is more than 24 inches. So we have a long range attack in close combat.
Wow,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways to think about that. Or Death Company veterans with jump packs for the Blood Angels, they can have a 12-inch move at the start of the game from Forlorn Fury, plus a 12-inch movement with their jump packs for 24-inch movement, 7-inch average charge, puts them in close combat on the first turn of the game. So long range is a massive part of the game. You need to be effective at long range. If you are not effective at long range, but your opponent is, let's say your opponent's playing with all heavy bolters and you've got a bunch of close combat, on the first turn of the game, they're going to shoot you and you're not going to do anything. On the second turn of the game, they're going to shoot you again and you don't have an effective medium range. So we get to your third range, which is close combat, but you've just had 2 rounds of receiving full firepower from your opponent's army. If 100% of his army can kill 33% of yours, you've left with 33% of your army, and now you've got to try and kill 100% of his army with 33% of yours. It just isn't going to happen. Right? So you need to be effective at every range in the game. And there are different effectivenesses. For example, if you are playing a close combat army, we need to be killing things that stop you getting into close combat, and we need to be tying up close combat, shooting units in close combat. So for example, if I'm playing White Scars and I'm playing against a very shooty army, I want to make sure that my Outriders touch their most powerful shooting unit. I don't necessarily want to kill anything in close combat. I just want to touch things so they can't shoot me, right? So that's another way of thinking about it, which is denying their ability to have their long range. Likewise, if I'm playing a very shooty army, I want to make sure that I've got a lot of movement so I can make sure I deny my opponent's close combat. A good example of this would be if I'm playing with suppressors for the Space Marines. They've got a pretty good range on their guns and they've got a high movement of 12. I really want to be at maximum range on those guys. I don't ever want to be within 12 inches because that's in close combat range. So I'll be moving around the board and shooting at distance. And if somebody gets close to them, move again and shoot at distance. Even changing objectives. So I'll sit on different objectives just to make sure I'm nowhere near close combat range. There is this weird habit for new players to just continually close the distance. And for me, I almost always want to be at maximum range of my guns if I'm playing a close combat army. So, for example, with my Space Marine Intercessors, my Primaris guys, they've got a 30-inch range. If they stand still, they can fire twice. I like to just put my Primaris Intercessors on an objective 30 inches away from stuff and just shoot and never move. And just stay there at long range, blast away at rapid fire, and just not get close to anything. Whereas my close combat units, I want to continually be moving up on my opponent. In fact, when I design an army, I will often design an army that has multiple functions. So a good example of this is kind of my Space Wolf army that I've got here. There's a whole bunch of stuff here, but I'll show you here. So my war suit is one of my favorite armies in my Space Wolf army. I actually have 2 war suits at the start of the army. The war suits can be set up in the middle of the battlefield. They get forward operatives. They can set up early. And what I'll do with them is I'll set them up on the middle 2 objectives in the middle of the board. That way, at the very beginning of the game, my 2 war suits are threatening close combat. They're in range of their 12-inch flamers, which is what I give them, their incendiary cannons. And so on the first turn of the game, if I go first, those war suits will blast with the firepower of the flamethrowers and charge into close combat.
It's terrible.
It is terrible. And I can take over my opponent's objectives and then get this beautiful power fist into close combat right at the start of the game. But then the rest of my units are these long fangs that stay further back with their Wolf Guard champion and these heavy weapons, and they'll sit on the objectives in my own deployment zone. So for close range, I've got the 2 war suits in my opponent's deployment zone going after their objectives at close combat, and then my 2 squads of long fangs will sit back on my objectives blasting at distance. So I've got long range covered and I've got close combat covered because I'm right at the very front. And then for the middle of the battlefield, I'll use assault intercessors that effectively have a 12-inch range. So that gives me that 12 to 24 inch because they can move and then shoot and then charge, and they'll hold up the middle of the battlefield. So between 2 assault intercessors, 2 war suits, and 2 long fangs, I'm controlling the back of the board, the middle of the board, and the front of the board. And if I get the first turn, the firepower from the long fangs and the war suits is so much that it doesn't matter that the intercessors aren't really doing anything. That's my alpha strike. If my opponent gets the first turn, the durability of my long fangs being at the back of the board in cover with terminators with storm shields keeps them alive. The assault intercessors are going to be ignored because the war suits are too much of a threat. And so even if they hit my war suits, which is often the first target, my assault intercessors then move up into close combat, followed by the long fangs, which still gives me control of the board. And the long and short of it is, no matter what happens, my Space Wolf army is prepared for most ranges, whether I go first or go second. So you've got to make sure your army can do, that has answers for everything. If you're playing a different army, for example, let's just say you're playing Chaos, with a Chaos army, you might want things like your drop pods to come in to get you that close combat on the first turn. But again, with my drop pods, I'll put 2 units in each drop pod, so I've got 2 charges, because the chance of rolling a 9 is very low. You're statistically going to get a 7. By putting 2 squads in each drop pod, I've got a very good chance that one of them will make that 9-inch charge, especially if I use rerolls from either command points or having a warlord ability that lets me reroll charges. But there's no point just relying on a drop pod army. I've got to have something that has long range as well. So maybe I'll have something like Predators, or maybe I'll have Havocs or something in the back of my deployment zone with that long range firepower to keep it going.
Or like the Venom Crawlers. I love those things.
Or Venom Crawlers. What I love about Venom Crawlers is they're a threat at long range because they've got those 36-inch guns, but they're also good in close combat. So if somebody comes after them in close combat, they can charge. If you put the Venom Crawlers, like your tactic, you put them with a Baden.
Yeah, so I have 2 Venom Crawlers with a Baden and a Greater Possessed. And basically they can fire off, at long range. And the idea is people are going to be like, oh, these things are firing off across the board. I got to get in close combat with them. Well, okay, come on and charge. Well, they're good at close combat. They're re-rolling fails because of a bad right now till, the Chaos Codex comes. They may fix that. But right now they're re-rolling failed hits. And I will go gladly heroic intervene with a Baden.
Right, so it's just such a great boost. And the reason the Greater Possessed is there is because the Greater Possessed gives +1 to strength to the models, but the guns of the Venom Crawlers are based on their stat line, not the stat of the gun. The stat is +2 to the user's strength. So because the Greater Possessed boosts strength as well, that just overall effectively maximizes that Venom Crawler. And again, they're good at long range and at short range. And there are lots of other ways to think about this. So for example, my Space Wolf Assault Intercessors, I will put a Thunderhammer in the squad, but I'll do the same in my Primaris Intercessors as well. So what that means is all Space Wolves have the ability to heroically intervene, and because of stratagems, you can do a 6-inch heroic intervention. Having a Thunderhammer in every squad of my Primaris Space Marines means that at any point, you've got a very nasty Sergeant with 3 attacks and a Thunderhammer that hits on 3s, because they get +1, if you come after anything in close combat. So they can sit and blast with their bolt rifles at long range all day, every day, and then if you charge something nearby, and I happen to have some Primaris Intercessors nearby, you're gonna get a Thunderhammer heroically intervene your face.
That's a perfect example of a callback to the ablative wounds with durability too.
Right, yeah, exactly, because all the other models in the unit are the bolt rifles firing that are also ablative wounds for a nasty Thunderhammer counterpunch. And again, it's something that you'll often see competitors, they won't bother doing that because like it's a waste of points to put a Power Fist or a Thunderhammer or even a Power Sword in every squad. But doing it gives you some real tactical flexibility. And on the time when you do make that heroic intervention with that Thunderhammer into their unit that they're trying to stop your long fangs from firing, it is a very nasty counterpunch that once again makes you effective at every range in the game. And so when you're designing your army, you want to look and think, if I am playing an army that is very strong at long range, can I fight back? Can I, on the first turn of the game, stop them firing or shoot them off the board so they can't affect me? If I'm playing an army that has a lot of firepower at the middle range, because that's when you tend to get a lot of shots, can I survive it? Can I fight at mid-range? If they're moving 12 inches and shooting, moving 12 inches and shooting, like bike armies that don't get into close combat, a shooting bike army, for example, like Genestealer Cult, or if they want to just pull back and shoot, or even some Space Marine armies where they've put like special weapons in their bike squads, they may not want to engage you in close combat. They might just want to run all over the board and have you chasing them.
I've seen that with orcs too.
Yeah, or jet bikes.
Nasty.
Yeah, it's horrible. You're just chasing around the board because you need that mid-range firepower. Do you have enough firepower at the middle range to take them out? And then lastly, if you get into close combat, if someone connects, how hard can you hit? The one squad in my army you do not want to get into close combat with is actually my long fangs. It sounds hysterical because they're my long range firepower, but I put a psyker and a chaplain near them. And because of heroic intervention, the psyker, the librarian, has the armor of Russ, or the helm of Russ, I forget which one it is. Anyway, it makes sure you always fight last in close combat. So I've had some lovely scenarios where someone's sent a demon prince into my long fangs to try and kill him in close combat, and the demon princes end up fighting a chaplain and a librarian, and the demon prince fights last, and by the time all the long fangs, the chaplain, and the librarian have fought, the demon prince is dead, and there was no point even making that charge. So once again, they're effective at long range and in close combat. And we've used that even against the Nightbringer, which is a very nasty unit. The Nightbringer can almost not be stopped, but making it fight last is actually a really powerful tactic, even in close combat. Because a lot of people will shy away from the Nightbringer in close combat, but you need to be effective against it. Having an ability to make it fight last means you can move and shoot, doing 3 points of damage, charge, doing 3 points of damage. The Nightbringer is going to fight back. You do need to kind of survive that, but as long as you can survive back against the Nightbringer hitting you, in its next turn, you hit first and kill it. And the kind of armies I do this with is actually my Slanesh army, and I'll do that with my Keeper of Secrets, because my Keeper of Secrets can survive the hit back from the Nightbringer, and then because it fights first in their turn, the Nightbringer doesn't get 2 attacks against me, it gets 1, and then it dies. So there are some really cool ways that you can use this if you think it out. If you've enjoyed this, if you like the 4 Pillars of Army Design, you'd like to learn more about it, then you may want to reach out and talk to our team, because we teach these strategies for everything that we do at Knights of the Game Table. And we have a free service where if you're interested, we will help you apply this to your army. You can contact us. James's phone number is, 512?
359-8192.
359-8...
8912.
8912. You can text that number and you can say, hey, can I get some help applying the 4 Pillars of Army Design to my army? And James or one of our Knights of the Game Table team will get on a phone call with you and we'll talk to you about it. Now, in fairness, we will absolutely try and sell you our lifetime membership at the same time. That's the trade-off. That's because we like giving people discounted miniatures and tons, literally thousands of dollars worth of painting tutorials for free, not to mention tactical, trainings. But as long as you're okay with us explaining to you all the reasons why we think the membership is amazing. It's a one-off payment. It's not like we're trying to get you to pay $1,000 a month or $100 a month or something. It's a one-off payment, and then we'll be helping you for life, like with discount. The discount alone will pay for itself within a year easily.
I've seen it happen so many times where people sign up and they pay off their membership with the discount. It's like night and day.
Yeah, and so that's why we want to do it. But we want to help as many people do it. We do this because we love it. So if you're interested, if you guys want to do that, you can absolutely sign up for the membership. And that brings us to the end of the 4 Pillars of Army Design.